So thank you all for being here, and it's always so delightful, even when we're a small group, and I think it deepens the conversation and it allows us to really kind of just arrive with our whole selves ready to engage with one another, and I love that. I wanted to go ahead and start with you, Mom, because as you always do so beautifully, you are the collector. You're the collector of words, collector of the images and imagery that we've shared, the voices of each one of us that have come into kind of union together every week or every month. And I always love and cherish how much you are, you just bring in our voices through your words. So
now what Cristina is going to show on the screen, last conversation, the theme was blessing, and there were 5 of us present during the conversation, and these are, I call this a collective poem because these are the words that came through the conversation from all of us. So here we go. I also have subtitled the poem, The Divine Algorithm. Pat threw that phrase in, and I just kind of grabbed onto it because I just love that concept that there is a divine algorithm, that it actually exists, and that each one of us adds to it every single day, every single moment. We're adding to that algorithm. So the intention is to make sure that what we're adding to that algorithm that's constantly changing is that we're adding high energy words and actions and thoughts. So here we go. In an infinite space and time continuum, input, process, and output are constantly being added to this ever-evolving, ever-spiraling equation. What pebbles are we dropping into this divine algorithm as the micro extends out into the macro? What energy ripples are we creating? What circles within circles, ever moving, ever changing, ever interconnecting, are we initiating? What collateral have we pledged in good faith as evidence of our birth contract? Are we walking in beauty? Are we being receptive to receiving blessings? Are we sending out blessings to others? As co-creators in this divine algorithm, how are we connecting to the essence of who we are? How are we affirming each other's existence? When beauty can be experienced in the depths of darkness, and joy can be found in tears of sorrow, when peace vibrates outwardly from within, and love defines the reason for our being, then we are all assisting in raising the consciousness level of all human beings on this planet. What we drop into this infinite pond, a word, a thought, an action, matters. There you go. Thank you, everyone.
Beautiful, Lynn. Thank you.
So thank you, Mom. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dr. Bertrice Barry, a person who my mom has shared with me and who has now become really quite important to like kind of my everyday kind of thinking and understanding. And then I'm going to read a little bit about a person who has joined Bertrice's site. she's on Facebook, and read her story, which will then segue kind of, I think, pretty nicely with what Pat is going to be sharing today. But Dr. Bertrice Barry, she's on Facebook. She has a website, but I just checked out her website, and she just posts her Facebook pages. So if you're on Facebook, I would really recommend just kind of looking at her work and joining her page. She just came out with, okay, so and there's some information about her. I believe she's a sociologist, and she has a lot of background studying history in regards to the African diaspora, and specifically social justice here in the United States. And she comes always from a place of love. And recently, and you'll just, I think you just need to spend time with her and you'll get to know her, but she's very much heart-centered. She does the kind of work that, actually, she's a huge role model for me. This is the kind of work that I want to do, and how I want to move in and out of academia. I really want to be more and more, this is a person who has integrated all of herself into what she does and how she teaches and how she works. And I just find it really beautiful. She just started a page though, which I really recommend you check out. You have to be invited, so it's a private group, but once you get onto her page, you can just ask to subscribe to her private group. But it's Stories to Tell with Dr. Bertrice Barry. And so she tells her stories, and she's bringing in other people, like whoever wants to share their stories, which are all very profound. It has a lot to do with identity and perspectives of what people are going through, what they're thinking about, like dispelling different myths about their own identities, about who they are. But there's so many stories that people are just sharing and sharing and sharing, and they're all coming, they're very heart-centered, and she makes sure that the stories that are shared, like this man is very happy to connect to the divine feminine energy. That's awesome. But basically you can go through and listen to other people's stories and how they are thinking about, you know, their lives and some of the themes. She told a story about value and what value truly means. And she had so many people replying to that video in so many different beautiful ways. And I just think that she brings gravitas to deep issues, and she's not afraid to show her emotions, and she's not afraid to not talk about what the really important issues are, but she does it through love, and shares a lot of herself. And so I would just, she's really helped me during these times. And she's just been really a light for the, you know, it's hard to know sometimes who to watch or who to kind of follow on these social media platforms. And I'm always looking for integrity, you know, people that speak from integrity and are their words and actions are in alignment. And so she's someone within academia, which is kind of hard to find, who's willing to kind of go there and really be herself. So in response to, and you'll kind of see how this all connects, but in response to this webpage that she has, there was a discussion or a post by, and I copied and pasted this, and I'm going to read it out loud, Heather. And I don't know who Heather is, but I really appreciated her story, and it ties into Pat's, what she's going to be sharing after me. So Heather, in response to Dr. Bertrice Barry's story, one of her stories right after Wednesday occurred with what occurred at the nation's capital, all the violence and everything that happened, she wrote, "Hi, my name is Heather, and I'd like to tell you a story. I live a mere 22 miles outside of the nation's capital. Most of the folks who I work in and near DC live in Virginia and Maryland, though there are some outliers that commute from as far away as West Virginia for their job. This means that many of my neighbors, and I love my neighborhood, work at the Pentagon, the White House, on the Hill, the State Department, the Department of Human Services, the Justice Department, the FBI, the DEA, etc. Usually when a big protest like what we saw on Wednesday comes to Washington, D.C., these folks try and work from home to avoid the possible chaos and increased traffic that happens as a result of so many people descending on our area. For essential workers, it is not always an option. With that said, I've been trying to keep things in perspective and remain calm since Wednesday's shocking events took place. As someone who lived overseas for most of my childhood up through high school, it has been difficult. The reason for this is because I've lived in a country where martial law was declared. At the time, Burma, now Myanmar, had been under a dictatorship for 26 years. Martial law there meant something a bit different. If you were out on the streets between the hours of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., you could be shot, no questions asked. As a result of the uprising that occurred and the increased chaos and violence, the Americans, Aussies, and Brits were evacuated. The US Embassy was left with a skeleton crew, which is the least amount of folks you need to keep an embassy running. My dad was one of the ones who stayed behind to help. We were at the end of our posting, thankfully, and he flew back to the States a few months later to join us in Virginia. Throughout the pandemic, I've been pretty calm because my one thought was, well, at least martial law hasn't been declared. It has been my worst case scenario, comfort thought, if you will. Watching what played out on Wednesday, however, took me back to those last few days in Burma before we were evacuated. The scenes shown on the news felt eerily familiar, and I found myself having to intentionally remind myself that this was a different situation. Then this morning, I saw an article on a friend's Facebook wall about how one of our newest elected officials, New Jersey Representative Andy Kim, after leaving the 1 a.m. vote on Wednesday, helped police officers pick up the trash the rioters had left behind. He was actually on his hands and knees in a suit, folks, picking up empty and half empty water bottles and wrappers. And suddenly my faith was renewed. Here is an elected official with a servant's heart doing something he had no intention of publicizing that somehow got out into the news anyway. It just goes to show that even the smallest gesture and action does and can affect and encourage others. In Tolkien's book, The Hobbit, there is a moment when Gandalf is questioned by the others as to why he chose Bilbo Baggins, a hobbit with no fighting experience, who seemed to them to be a liability on their journey. Gandalf's response was, "Some believe it is only great power that can hold evil in check, but that is not what I have found. It is the small everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay. Small acts of kindness and love. Why Bilbo Baggins? Perhaps because I am afraid, and he gives me courage." We can really make a difference, and our lights unified together can truly drive back the darkness. Be encouraged, my friends. Better days are ahead. I love you.